Is this just not economic warfare by the insiders seizing the energy infrastructure? You said something that is central to everything. England, the United States, Canada, the wealthy nations of the planet are energy-based and idea-based economies. Our countries are set up to be energy rich, and so you cut the energy off to some third world country, sure, people are going to die. But if you start cutting the energy off to a first world nation, we are going to completely implode. We live in far spread out areas. We are designed around the combustion engine. We are designed around coal-powered plants that supply over 50% of our power here in the U.S. We can't compete if we don't have it. And China's building 3 to 5 a week. We don't even get 2 or 3 a year. They have covertly been shutting down or stopping hundreds. I just put on screen the news articles where they say they're going to shut down thousands. I mean, this is economic, savage warfare and is high treason, and we must resist them. What are your ideas to stop them? Because here's my second point as a caveat to that. Here's the French news agency. World's 6th mass extinction may be underway, study says. Due to climate change, they say man is about to be extincted. So is this a self-fulfilling prophecy where all these global warming people say, humans are bad, we'd be better off without them. We need eco-fascism, but get ready for humans to die everywhere so that as they cut the power supplies off, especially the third world, and 1 billion plus die, they then claim that's part of the mass extinction caused by the imaginary global warming when they themselves, the neo-eugenicists, have triggered it.
I think we've got to look very carefully at the motives of some of these people. Remember that we had for many decades, throughout the first 3 quarters of the 20th century, we had an active communist Marxist system that was trying to destroy the economies of the West and had learnt that the way to destroy them was via energy. Now, when the Berlin Wall came down, these people did not disappear. They did not give up. They merely moved into the green movement. And you may think, if you're listening to this program, who is this lunatic Potty Peer saying these strange, extreme things on the line from England? Well, get this. I spoke to the late Eric Ellington, who was a very good friend of mine. He was one of the founders of Greenpeace. Now, here was a guy who genuinely believed that we should leave the planet a better place than we found it, that we should not pollute it, not destroy it, not rape its resources to a degree that was excessive. He was a sensible, genuine, kind-hearted, really genuinely green environmentalist. And he made his living as a landscape photographer, going around and photographing the beauties of nature on behalf of those who wished it to be recorded for all time. He was a genuinely good man. And he it was who told me that he and several of his co-founders of Greenpeace had to leave that movement after a few years because the Marxists had moved in and taken it over, and they no longer use the rhetoric of Marxism to destroy the world's energy-based economy by going for that soft underbelly, which is energy generation. They began talking the language of environmentalism instead. It's exactly the same people with exactly the same motives. It's a kind of hatred of the success and the prosperity and the democracy of the West. They do not like the idea that we, the people, by our cross on the ballot paper, can decide better than they can how we should be governed. They hate the very notion that the people know best what is best for the people. And so what they're doing is that particular faction, for there are many factions in this game, that particular faction, which is not small, it is not ill-funded, it is powerful, it has lots of money, that faction is trying to drive this scare with the deliberate and increasingly openly stated intention of shutting down the West. Now, we can do two things. We can sit there as we sat and watched mesmerized while Hitler proposed to shut down the West by his armies marching in. And we can sit with similarly mesmerized fascination as a different kind of rhetoric, but just as ruthless, says we should not only shut down the West, but perhaps the more extreme ones say, and you know, and you've quoted them before as saying it, that humanity should be wiped from the face of the earth, and they're perfectly happy to help it along the way by destroying our energy. Now imagine the consequences of the policy they are advocating. Imagine an elderly lady who has contributed to society all her life, who lives on an upper floor of an apartment block. She might be 20 or 30 floors above the ground. How is she going to get there if there is no electricity to turn the wheels of the elevator? Basic questions like that. How?
Because our infrastructure
needs an operation. How is anyone going to take an X-ray when the electricity isn't working? None of this is thought through. None of it is joined up. All of it is flagrantly irresponsible, very dangerous, and I'm going to go so far as to say, and I don't think this is unreasonable to say this, it is treasonous. And eventually, the people who are doing this are going to have to be rounded up and put on trial for trying to destroy the very society that bred them and which now lionizes them for the policies which, if implemented, would end up destroying it and them too.
Well, yes, sir. In fact, you just stole my thunder. Look, in the last 2 years, thousands of prominent people, hundreds of scientists, UN heads come out and say, we want environmental fascism. We want a dictatorial world government. The Financial Times of London foreign editor. We're going to do this for your own good. We're going to have a global one-child policy. Ted Turner just said that in Mexico a few months ago. You were there. I mean, these people are brazen authoritarians saying they're coming for our private property, saying they're coming for our children, saying they're coming for our infrastructure, and now they're doing it. They have declared unmitigated war against us, and we're at a handicap because you're apologizing for telling the truth. I'm apologizing when words can't describe how maniacal. I mean, it's like the TV ads they ran in England showing small children not going along with carbon taxes, so their teacher murders them. And I mean, this is a group of miscreant, self-hating, gibbering control freaks that are enemies, and I can't imagine a jury anywhere that will not convict them for calling for mass murder. Throw them in prison now! They're declaring war on us!
Now, actually, you raise an interesting point there, because although the right of free speech in the United States is very wide, it does not reach as far as sedition. And sedition is what they're now preaching. When they start preaching that children who disagree with the so-called mainstream opinion on climate change should be blown to bits, and you see a picture of the teacher hitting a red button, and then you see the splattered blood of the children falling on the other children, and this is the kind of propaganda that the Green movement now regards as appropriate, then this is a wake-up call to the civilized world that the uncivilized, the usual suspects, and you call them the eco-fascists, and I'm afraid that's a sensible name for them, that these people are intent on destruction. There are two kinds of people in politics, those who wish to build and those who wish to destroy. And on the hard environmental left, in the traffic light tendency, the green's too yellow to admit they're really reds, these people have absolutely no intention of playing by the Queensberry rules. They have no intention of following democracy, no intention of living by the ballot box. That is why here and in many other areas of life, they are working a way to transfer governing power from elected hands in the individual nation states to unelected hands in supranational organizations whose common defining characteristic is the total absence of any form of democratic control over them or election of their key personnel.
And just to be clear, Lord Monckton, on record, we've never called for their investigation and arrest until they began, like a group of blackbirds in a tree, you know, singing to the same tune, to have us arrested, to have us killed, to have one-child policies, to put in prison or execute climate change deniers. They are openly calling for an authoritarian nightmare planet run by them. They have made the declarations of tyranny. And if I announced that I wanted to rob and kill my neighbor and that I was going to do it, the police would come arrest me. Why are they allowed to get away with this? I think I'm answering my own question. Why do they come out with such outrageous statements? Are they trying to condition us to the extreme ideas so that they can then have the moral high ground in their minds to start actually carrying this out?
What they're doing is, it's a well-known political technique. They're pushing the envelope. They're seeing how far they can push before we push back. And if we don't push back, they go on pushing forward. Now, the question is how to push back. And I think there are various ways that those who are listening to this program, who may think that it all sounds terribly extreme, can, in fact, reassure themselves that what we're saying is not, in fact, extreme at all. It is the solemn truth. There's plenty of evidence at scienceandpublicpolicy.org of what these people are up to, how they tried to bend the science of climate in the ClimateGate emails, which revealed a great deal of the methods they were using, how they are trying to distort the economic case, how they're trying to capture politics, and how they are trying very furtively to transfer power via things like the Cancun Agreement to the hundreds of interlocking new UN-sponsored bureaucracies that will be answerable to the Secretariat of the States Parties to the UN Convention.
And by the way, that UN program talks about relocation of populations because of their carbon footprint. You also see Obama ignoring the Congress and using the unelected bureaucracy to shut down power plants. In closing, Lord Monckton, as you know, it's come out in the last few days that the NPR officers compared deniers of climate change to birthers and flat earth believers. The undercover video was running during the meeting, and they're getting taxpayer money, and these are virulent, anti-human, wicked control freaks.
Well, I think it's time we started taking them to court for the criminal offense of sedition, because that's what it is. They've pushed too far. And where you can, go to these meetings where they speak. Where you can, record those videos. Just send them in to prisonplanet.com. There the team will look at them, and they will then pass on to me the more interesting ones where these people speak out and say things they shouldn't and openly preach sedition. I am in touch with various legal foundations in the States who can help to bring these people to trial for the criminal offense of sedition against the people of the United States. And all it takes is one or two of these to be brought up in front of a jury who hears what they've been saying, looks at the videos they've been producing of children being blown up, and then finds them guilty of sedition and sends them away to prison for a few years to think about their folly. And all the rest of these cowards will run for cover and the scare will be over. So you can help by filming these people as they make these extreme remarks. Film carefully so they don't see you filming, or they'll destroy your film. Get it out. Get it to prisonplanet.com. They will pass it to me. I will pass it to the lawyers, and we will start prosecuting these people until America is free once again.
Absolutely, because, I mean, they are calling for ending the democratic process. They are calling for our arrest. We're not the ones drawing first blood. We're saying when you say overthrow a system of government, arrest people you don't agree with, one-child policies. You know, when you take a country over, you blow up their power plants first when you invade. They're destroying our power system. This is warfare, and these are the most sickening, self-hating, loathing control freaks you can imagine. They must be met. They must be defeated. They want their organized, planned economy, and they've got to destroy our infrastructure to do it. Scienceandpublicpolicy.org. Lord Christopher Monckton, thank you for joining us. I look forward to having you up in the near future. You've got 1 minute left. Closing comments.
Right. As I've said, you know where to send the tapes. Film these people when they make these speeches. If you see cuttings of them reported in the newspapers, send them in to prisonplanet.com. We're going to start a file on these people. Once there is enough material, we will then move to prosecute them, because the correct way to deal with them is not violence, it's not killing, it is prosecution. in the courts of law. That's how your Constitution said it should be done. And it's that Constitution and the freedom and democracy that it guarantees that we are all sworn to defend. That's what we're going to try to do to keep democracy alive despite what these people are trying to do. So God bless you all, God bless you, Alex, and God bless America.